and welcome to Lesson 3. Masanobu Fukuoka, who wrote the book One Straw Revolution, says, life on a small farm might seem punitive, but by living such a life, we become able to discover the great path. I believe that one who deeply respects his neighborhood and everyday world in which he lives will be shown the greatest of all worlds. This wise man is a farmer and philosopher who lived on the island of Shikoku in southern Japan. His farming technique requires no machines, no chemicals, and very little weeding. He did not plow the soil or use prepared compost, and yet the condition of the soil in his orchards and fields improve each year. His technique creates no pollution and does not require fossil fuels. His processes also requires less labor than any other, yet the yields in his orchards and fields compare favorably with the most productive Japanese farms, which use all the technical know-how of modern sciences. He gives everything back to the earth, and his methods are simple. Let's explore our eco-footprint journey a little further by first looking at ecological footprint standards. Application standards were built on the first set of internationally recognized ecological footprint standards, which were released in 2006. These standards include key updates. For the first time, provide standards and guidelines for product and organizational footprint assessments. The ecological footprint standards of 2009 are designed to ensure that footprint assessments are produced consistently and according to community-proposed best practices. They aim to ensure that assessments are conducted and communicated in a way that is accurate and transparent by providing standards and guidelines for such issues as use of source data, derivation of conversion factors, establishment of study boundaries, and communication of findings. The standards are applicable to all footprint studies, including subnational populations, products, and even organizations. These standards have been developed through a consensus, committee-based process by a standards committee drawn from representatives of academia, government, non-government organizations, and from consulting firms. This then gives rise to the question, why does the ecological footprint need standards? A growing number of government agencies, organizations, and communities are adopting the ecological footprint as a core indicator of sustainable resource use. As the number of eco-footprint practitioners around the world increases, different approaches to conducting footprint studies could lead to fragmentation and divergence of the methodology. This would reduce the ability of the footprint to produce consistent and comparable assessments across applications and could generate confusion. The value of the footprint as a trusted sustainable metric therefore depends not only on the scientific integrity of the methodology, but also on consistent and transparent presentation of results across analysis. It also depends on communicating results of analysis in a manner that does not distort or misrepresent its findings. To meet these goals, Global Footprint Network initiated a consensus, committee-based process for the development of standards governing footprint applications, and for an ongoing scientific review of the methodology, ensuring that footprint results are both credible and consistent will encourage even more widespread adoption of the ecological footprint, increasing the effectiveness as a catalyst for a sustainable future. These standards are developed by the Standards Committee, comprised of members drawn from the network's partner organizations and representing academia, government, NGOs, and consulting firms. The Standards Committee works in conjunction with Global Footprint Network staff to establish the standards, which are then submitted for extensive public comment. The Ecological Footprint Standards of 2009 represents the results of months of discussions, consensus building, and review by stakeholders and footprint practitioners. We are now going to take a look at various footprint and biocapacity equations for the calculation. The first of our equations, the ecological footprint, measures appropriated biocapacity, expressed in global average bioproductive hectares, across 5 distinct land use types, in addition to one category of indirect demand for biocapacity in the form of absorptive capacity for carbon dioxide emissions. The eco-footprint of production represents primary demand for biocapacity. The second equation, all manufacturing processes rely to some degree on the use of biocapacity to provide material inputs and remove wastes at various points in the production chain. Thus, all products carry with them an embodied footprint, and international trade flows can be seen as flows of embodied demand for biocapacity. In order to keep track of both the direct and indirect biocapacity needed to support people's consumption patterns, the ecological footprint methodology uses a consumer-based approach. For each land use type, the eco-footprint of consumption is thus calculated. Equation 3. Ecological footprint assessments aim to measure demand for biocapacity by final demand, but the ecological footprint is tallied at the point of primary harvest or carbon emissions. Thus, tracking the embodied ecological footprint in derived products is central to the task of assigning the eco-footprint of production to the end users it serves. Primary and derived goods are related by product-specific extraction rates. The extraction rate for a derived product is used to calculate its effective yield. And now for the last equation we are going to be looking at, equation number 4. Often equation 3 is simply the mass ratio of derived product to primary input required. This ratio is known as the technical conversion factor for the derived product. There are a few cases where multiple derived products are created simultaneously from the same primary product. For example, soybean oil and soybean cake are both extracted simultaneously from the same primary product, in this case the soybean. In this situation, summing the primary product equivalents of the derived products would lead to double accounting. To resolve this problem, the ecological footprint of its primary product must be shared between the simultaneously derived goods. It's getting complicated, isn't it? There are in all 14 such equations that we account for when performing your calculation, and they can all be studied on pages 3 to 11 of the report named National Footprint Accounts Method, paper 2010, .pdf, which is available for download from our website. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. This is from Margaret Mead. The carbon footprint is 54% of humanity's overall ecological footprint, and its most rapidly growing component. Humanity's carbon footprint has increased 11-fold since 1961. Reducing humanity's carbon footprint is the most essential step we can take to end overshoot and live within the means of our planet. Today, the term carbon footprint is often used as shorthand for the amount of carbon, usually in tons, being emitted by an activity organization. The carbon component of the ecological footprint takes a slightly different approach, translating the amount of carbon dioxide into the amount of productive land and sea area required to sequester carbon dioxide emissions. This tells us the demand on the planet that results from burning fossil fuels. Measuring it in this way offers a few key advantages. The eco-footprint framework encourages us to address the problem of climate change in a way that will not simply transfer demand from one critical resource to another, but will attack the underlying causes of climate change and of species loss, deforestation, soil erosion, water shortages, and other problems, rather than the symptoms by addressing the expanding human metabolism of nature's services. On our Eco-Analyst's website, please download the World Eco Footprint and Biocapacity PDF. In this document, we see both eco-footprint in global hectares per capita and biocapacity in global hectares per capita. This document shows part of Africa, and when we compare South Africa with the world and Africa, we see that the world's overall ecological footprint is 2.7 global hectares per capita. Africa is 1.4 global hectares collectively, and South Africa is 2.3. This becomes an alarming high statistic that we need to take careful note of in South Africa. And then looking at the populations of the world, Africa and South Africa, the ecological footprint information is even more alarming and makes us realize that we have to act now to make the changes to reduce this. We have come to the point of this module where we are going to begin to discuss green living and starting to look at the ways that we can shift and change the way we live to a more ecological, harmonious way with our very precious resource, our Earth. Something that has only become a problem in our Earth's life in the last 30 or so years is electronic waste. Most of human waste material around the world currently goes to landfills. That means all our old electronic equipment like TVs and computers, they get chucked in a big hole in the ground somewhere. This type of junk that we throw away, literally all things that run on electricity, is known as e-waste or electronic waste. It has been estimated that the total e-waste stream is currently around the 40 billion tons per year. As is the case with most wastes, e-waste can be a problem if handled and discarded incorrectly, but it contains various materials that are valuable resources. The toxicity is due in part to the various heavy metals, such as lead, mercury, cadmium, and numerous other hazardous substances. A typical computer monitor may contain more than 6% lead by weight. With accountability stepping into the picture in the last few decades, massive international organizations around the world are getting pressure from their governments, as well as all the people that live in that country, to start accounting for their products when they are thrown away. Hewlett-Packard, or HP as they are more commonly known, back in 2007 collected 28.5 million kilograms of waste computer hardware. Their target for 2010, which is being closely watched by concerned citizens, is to reach 1 billion kilograms for recovered e-waste. Most large companies are offering what is known as a take-back program, as they are also redesigning their products to make them greener. If you have any electronic products which you do not use anymore, then visit www.ewasa.org to find out where you can take your unused light bulbs, your batteries, cell phones, and other electronic products that you don't want anymore. The pros and cons of palm oil is another reality that we need to examine, and an issue that was new to me before we started writing this training module. I did not know much about the orangutan's dilemma until Nidhi told me about a YouTube link that I discovered their plight. Let me tell you the facts so you can see both sides of the coin. Then you decide what to do with this newfound information. Palm oil is an edible vegetable oil that comes from the oil palm tree. About 40 million tons is produced each year, with 86% originating from plantations in Indonesia and Malaysia. These days, palm oil is used in everything from our favorite foods, toiletries, and cosmetics, including many organic ones, to household cleaning products. This has resulted in an increase for palm oil demand that in the last 10 years has steadily increased, resulting in the land area occupied by palm oil plantations more than doubling. A key issue of this rapid growth in demand for land use has resulted in land once occupied by rainforests being cleared for new plantations. An example of this is Indonesia, where 2 million hectares of land were cleared for palm oil plantations each year between 2000 and 2005. In Malaysia, over 80% of deforestation that occurred between 1995 and 2005 was attributed to palm oil expansion. But deforestation is not the only problem. With these plantations, as many of the forests cleared are situated on top of peat bogs, which are among the world's most concentrated stores of carbon. As an area is cleared, the peat dries and decomposes, freeing this carbon. According to Greenpeace studies, in Indonesia alone, this accounts for almost 2 billion tons of greenhouse gases annually from this process alone. Besides the loss of plant biodiversity, there is also the loss of rainforest wildlife. And it has been calculated that 80 to 100% of rainforest wildlife cannot survive in palm oil plantations. Since 1990, the number of Sumatran orangutans has decreased by 91%, with only 7,300 left, as up to 50 of them die each week as a result of palm oil industry activities. But it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to palm oil. The palm oil has an extremely high oil yield, as much as up to 6 tons of oil per hectare per year, compared to estimates that suggest it would take 10 times the area of land to grow rapeseed or soya. Palm oil is likely to expand, so the challenge is to finding ways to produce it sustainably. In 2004, the Roundtable of Sustainable Palm Oil, also known by its acronym RSPO, was established. But a current lack of labeling requirements means that palm oil used in products is often labeled as vegetable oil. If you have not watched the YouTube video as yet, then pause this training lesson now. Find the link on our website and go and watch the video on palm oil and orangutans. Then send the link to all your friends and family, as I'm sure many of them are not familiar with their dwindling numbers and shocking ways of dying. Thank you. Please download from our website the seasonal food chart and consult it before you go shopping the next time. Rather buy foods that are grown locally and are in season. That way you can be sure the ecological footprint of the product is low. We will cover this in much more detail in our training module number 15, Eating Green. A new industry and awareness that has come into being because of ecological footprinting is the green building industry. What is a green building? A green building is a building which is energy efficient, resource efficient, and environmentally responsible, which incorporates design, construction, and working practices that significantly reduce or eliminate its negative impact on the environment and its occupants. Building green is an opportunity to use resources efficiently and address climate change while creating healthier and more productive environments for people to live and work in. On a practical level, this encompasses the use of design, materials and technology to reduce energy and resource consumption and create improved human and natural environments. Specific green building measures include careful building design to reduce heat loads, maximize natural light, and promote the circulation of fresh air, the use of energy-efficient air conditioning and lighting, the use of environmentally friendly, non-toxic materials, the reduction of waste, and the use of recycled materials, water-efficient plumbing fittings and water harvesting, the use of renewable energy sources, and sensitivity with regard to the impact of the development on the environment. A green building rating tool sets standards and benchmarks for green buildings and enables an objective assessment to be made as to how green a building really is. The rating system sets out a menu of all the green measures that can be incorporated into a building to make it green. Points are awarded to a building according to which measures have been incorporated, and after appropriate weighting, a total score is arrived at, which determines the rating. There is a rating system for making the necessary ratings. In order to achieve certification, Building owners submit documentation to the Green Building Council of South Africa, who employ independent assessors to assess the submission and score the building. Certification is awarded for 4-star, 5-star or 6-star Green Star SA ratings. There are several rating systems in existence worldwide, including LEED from the US, BREEAM from the UK, and Green Star from Australia. After a process of industry and expert consultation, the Green Building Council of South Africa Board decided to base our South African rating tool on the Australian Green Star system and to customize this tool for South African use. And finally in this lesson, we are going to look at grey water greening. The world we live in is rapidly becoming water stressed, with some countries being affected more than others. Where we are based, we have just been through the driest year on record for 132 years. Our government has assessed that Gauteng's demand will exceed supply by 2013 and that of Cape Town by 2016. Currently, between a third and a half of all water used in homes, we flush down the drain instead of reusing it. There are basically two types of grey water recapture systems, namely the water from your sink, laundry, shower and bath, and collecting water from your roof when it rains. The water which gets flushed down the toilet is known as black water. There are many different types of grey water systems that you can install at your home to collect used water to water your garden and plants with. Do a bit of research on the internet for a distributor near you who can explain the various solutions available to you. Where Eco-Analyst is situated in Eden in South Africa, we have experienced firsthand the immensity of climate change in the past few years. First we had floods and then a severe drought. In August of 2006, this area experienced severe rainfall and flooding. The South African Weather Service said that George had received 230.1 millimeters of rain between 8 on Tuesday and 8 in the morning on Wednesday. Large-scale evacuations, infrastructure damage, and our Otanequa-Chuchu train line damaged beyond repair and subsequently written off. The towns of George, Knysna, Mossel Bay and Plettenberg Bay were declared an official disaster area due to the flooding caused by climate change. Then, in 2009, the Southern Cape experienced the lowest recorded rainfall in history, going back 132 years. Municipal services delivery was and still is under pressure, while the residents are exhausting our natural river extraction ability. We are currently experiencing the highest water tariffs ever. They have increased in some areas by up to 300%. Our council has even introduced punitive tariffs due to the stressed water resources, which means we are paying much more for our water and getting fined if we don't monitor and reduce our usage. This is the first time this area has experienced the wrath of climate change, and we were not ready. We will cover this in much more depth in our training module 14, Adaptation and Mitigation. Ecologists have debated for decades over whether there is something of ecological value to species diversity. We found that in forests throughout the New and Old World tropics, older trees are more diverse than younger ones. In other words, diversity is actually selected for as each of the forests matures. This means diversity does indeed matter and is an essential property of these complex ecosystems. Christopher Wills once claimed, "We are making a difference and changing the world. We are doing it step by step." Until next time, thank you.